doing that last video and editing and all that, I was glad to do it, kind of push myself to do something different. But I don't think the live recording and painting is going to be great for me and my channel. I don't do like live broadcasts and such, and so it just, I don't know, it seems a little weird, and it makes for a long video. Makes it easy editing, but besides the point. So I think I'm going to do a mixture of both. I'm going to show you my thinking process, what I'm doing, and then cut away and just work on the others and come back. And I think that works the best. So I know these guys I want to be less green and more blue. And so I've got a little yellow and a little green so I can mix with the blue to see what kind of color I can get it, and then white so I can lighten it up. I want it to look sickly, and then of course I need a lighter color for the dry brushing highlights and stuff. So let's just start off. I don't want it to turn the blue green. So let's bring this down here. My old paper, the paint was just I just threw it away, you know, didn't need it. And oh, that looks pretty cool. Some of the paper underneath, the paint had finally started to bleed through, so I just threw the top one or two little pieces of paper towel away and put some more in there. So this is almost like an aquamarine. That looks pretty cool. Okay. And I got the paint too far up on my brush. I'm bad about that. I'm a noob. I'm still learning. That's not too bad, but let's see if we can get it just a little. Okay, there we go. Now it's got like a sickly look to it. And of course I realize it's not going to show up on camera the same as it does here in person, but that looks pretty cool. I'm liking that so far. So get some of this paint off, especially off of the handle part. Go. I'm going to work this paint around to make sure it's good and mixed here on the wet palette. Spread it out. Now remember, these guys still have some of that zenithal primering effect. So if you look from the top, they look kind of white, but you can see some shadows underneath, and then see they look almost black from underneath. And that's kind of what you want to just help you see and feel some natural shadows, and plus it should help with the paints to give that effect. And I know my paint schemes, some of you are probably just screaming at me, you don't like them. I looked online, compared other people's paint jobs, and then also the actual official toy lines, action figures. And I'm going with something that kind of resembles all of those. Now this is drying like a robin's egg blue on the figure, so I don't know if I like that or not. We'll see. I'm going to keep going. Try to get it to cover completely. This guy won't have a lot of skin showing. He is much more armored up, and that armor will be mostly black. I may have to dull down the black a little bit with some of the white. It'll thicken it up, and it'll just age it, make it less shiny. We will see. And I don't think he has any skin showing on his legs. He looks completely armored up. let's go ahead and get the head and face. And remember, especially on the faces, small figures like this, get that paint very thin, runny. And then let it kind of flow where it will. Try not to let it pull up too bad and get dry. You can always pull it back out with the brush, move it around. There we go. So this is giving it a chameleon reptilian look to it. It's pretty cool. I think I like it. Now it's your game, it's your figures, you know, paint them any way you want. Just get some paint on them. Now I'm not going to put any of this paint in his mouth. It has that black primer down in there and it looks pretty cool. I did put some in his eye sockets because I plan on dabbing some paint in those later to try to give him some spooky eyes. But in the mouth, I'm going to leave it. If a little bit of paint gets in there, I'm not worried about it, but for the most part, I want to keep it just the way it is. That'll give some nice contrasts. There we go. Okay. Simple first step. On camera it looks blue, but I'm telling you in person it's more of a robin's egg, and this is blue and this is sky blue, robin egg, I don't know. Anyway, so that's all for their basic skin. So I'm going to do the others. We'll come back so you don't have to sit and watch all this in my rambling. Now you might be wondering what's going on. Now, this could have been fingers sticking out, but it almost looks like a glove. This one definitely looks like a glove, and you can't see the fingers curled under there that well. So I'm going to leave this as a glove, and so that is his only skin. But while I was doing that, I grabbed these other 6 figures because they're similar, just smaller. And I'm going to see if I can get the waist between his jacket and pants. We'll see how well that turns out. And then here you can definitely see in the mini, probably not on camera, but definitely on the mini, that he has claws. So it's claws sticking out from the glove. You can see the pointy fingers. Okay, so I don't know about the rest of it. It almost looks like an armor, like maybe his elbow and stuff is sticking out. And it does look like he has a bit of a wrist guard, but I'm just going to paint that all like it's his hand. Not worried about it. The detail's so small. That'll give him a little break in his color. And there could be a piece of arm sticking out here under the shoulder pad, but I'm not going to worry about that either. But since these guys are so similar to the others and there was so little area to paint, I decided to, while I had this color mixed the way I like it for the base, I'd get all of them and do them. So that's what's going on right now. I got them all painted, but some of these as they dried, especially along the, according to online, the way it looks, this is like a scabby, scaly patch, and so is this on his forearm. You can make it armor if you want it, but I left it as skin. But some of this, and like the elbow and some of the ridge of his face, it dried and it was just too dark. You could even see some of the black underneath. So I'm just putting another thin coat on it, and we'll see how it looks after that coat. And if we need more, we can put more on. These guys turned out pretty good. And it has some shadowing, but that's fine. I don't mind. And here you can see, since this has a nice rough texture, that part of his arm does look a little darker than this, even though it's the same paint. So natural lighting with that zenithal, it looks like it might have worked pretty good on this one. Still might touch up his face a little bit, but I don't want to go overboard yet until I get to my wash and my dry brush. So we'll keep going. Just finished putting the second coat on all of them, even the big guys. Went ahead and put a nice thin coat all over on the skin. So 2 coats, gonna let that dry, and then we're gonna do the shadowing, and we'll just mix it up right here and do like a dark wash, and then come back with some dry brushing. Since I had lightened this paint up, you probably could go in and just use the blue, make a wash. It might work okay, but I'm gonna try something here, see if it'll work, figure out which brush I want to use. Okay, let's just try this. We're gonna get a lot of white, and just a tiny bit of the black. Get a nice gray, a really warm gray. Here we go. That's still darker than this. Now I'm going to mix this in. Well, maybe right there will be better. There we go. That don't look too bad. You want it to be a similar shade is fine, but just not too off, too dark, too light. Now let's see how that looks. Not too bad. Not too bad. Okay. I think all the light in the blue lightened it up more than I wanted. So this is what I'm going to try. See if it'll work. If not, I'll have to, well, if the brush will stay, I'll have to mix it up some other way. So I have some dish soap here. I'm just going to get a little bit. Doesn't take much. That might even be too much. Who knows? We'll see if this will work. Okay, really work that in. Then we're going to add water. Going to get it really runny. And you can see that is rather than being a aquamarine looking, it's almost a bluish gunmetal. It's pretty runny. It's not too bad. So this might work. I really want it thin. I'm going to test it on one of the figures. That way if it messes up, no big deal. That's why I'm just letting this run. Show you trial and error that I'm doing here. See how it does. And then if it doesn't work the way we want, I can just dab it off and repaint the area. So especially here, let's dab some of that off. But here in the shoulder area and the underarm, and now it seems lighter. It's not doing what I wanted it to do. So let's just grab a tiny bit more black. Yeah, it almost looks gray on the paper towel. This time I am going to try and push some of it down into the figure, because this is going to be my test one. I'm not going to worry about the waist, it's just too small. Not going to be able to tell anything there. I'm going to run this down into between the fingers of that hand. Now, as that is drying, let's see if I can tell any kind of difference other than it filling in the places on his face. And so far, I'm not really getting the effect I want it. It's not bad, but it's not great. So I'm going to let that dry, and we'll see. I let it dry for quite a while, and I don't know if you can tell the difference, but it lightened it up quite a bit, and that is not what I wanted. This is my regular color. Now this does look cool. This is a cool color, but I was not wanting to go that route. So we're going to try something different. Don't know if it'll work. Might just go with straight gray. Don't know if I want to do the black. Let's give that a try. Couldn't get the wash the way I wanted. I put quite a bit of soap in there, quite a bit of water, and you can tell it came out darker. It's almost still a blue color. So this is the one I rewashed with some blue. There is the original. It looks cool, but now it doesn't look like the others, so I may have to go back and put a little bit of the old aquamarine on top of this when it dries, and we're just not going to worry about that. When I wash the whole thing, I may do a gentle dab wash in its armpits and elbow pit and stuff like that around its bicep, and just leave it the way it is, and then we'll do the dry brush for some cool effects. What I'm going to try, I've got about 6 or 7 parts white to 1 tiny part of black. My black it's really thin and inky, and it is really darkening up this white. I want it to just barely have a hint of color. So let's try a couple more drops of white. This white clumps at times, so you'll have to play with your paints. They're all different, even within the same name brand. Colors will be different in their thickness and consistency. So now this is looking pretty good. I'm going to do a test on one, see how it does. Let's see, I've got a brush there I think I might could use. Okay. No. I think I'm using the brush I was wanting to use. Okay. I'm going to clean it real good. Get me some fresh piece of... There we go. See how this does. And I'm not too worried. If it does kind of mess up my figure, I can repaint it. But I'm going to try and get this brush really dry. Just some paint on each side. And then kind of like we did on the other figures, especially across the face, make it look like a glowy skull almost. Oh yeah. That's looking good. So I'm not going to worry about the shadowing it right now because I was having so much trouble with it on these small figures and trying to make my own wash to do it. So we will do this instead. We'll focus on this. Let me see if I get it in focus good for you up close. Come on, mouse. There we go. Starting to see a little color on his face and hands. Looks better in person even. So I think this is going to work. And I'm going to really on these spots where it has that skin texture, the lizardy skin texture, I'm going to get it even thicker. And I probably will let this dry and come back with another coat. Now I got some paint on his armor. I ain't worried about it. It'll be mostly black. It'll cover that up. I just want to spread this around. And then get a little bit off of the face there. Try not to dab. If you get it pulled up, you might could dab, but I would say get a clean brush first. You want to go against the ridges the best you can to keep that paint. And if it gets some glumped up in a spot, try doing this to pull it away or get you a clean brush and dab it out. But that's looking pretty good. And I'm going to leave it like that on this one and do the rest. We'll be back in a little bit. What I'm doing now is straight white. I did this gray dry brush over all of these guys. Got it a little bit too thick in some spots, but not worried about it. And then I'm doing the straight white just over their face and like top of their head area, just to make it like a glowy skull look. Because when you put the sealer on it, it will darken it a little bit. And then it's still going to look ghostly. I could not get these to look the way I wanted, especially on the skin. But even the armor with the zenithal primering I tried with my paints and with them being small scale. So I ended up having to just paint the armor black. Don't know if it's going to focus good. And as I painted the armor black, it just hid all of that zenithal effect. So then I just went around and touched up some areas with some red on the gun. Then on the shoes, on the tips of his shoes, I gave him some steel toes. And then on the gun, I gave it some metal highlights. And then the arm band, don't know if that is going to show up. Down here is silver. Everything else I just did flat black and red, and I mixed the red with just a little bit of black to take off some of that glossy shine. And then when I put the wash on it, it should look pretty good. And I've done that with all those. Just a quick update of what I've done. I picked places on the gun and on their armor to do a light coat of the metal paint, and it's reflecting good. It looks good. And then some of the leather straps and different parts I did red, and then anything I needed to touch up I just did with the black, and it looks pretty good. I am happy with how it looks. And the silver I did a little bit thicker than a dry brush in places, but I just did silver on it. And then on these guys I did the same, but I did less silver, and I did more of the gun and less of their armor, so that they have more of a leather armor, just black and red. And all of these figures are now ready. I believe I'm ready for a light black wash on them, and we'll see how that looks. It didn't quite turn out as well as I wanted, but I'm still very pleased with how they look. I did a very light wash on like the back of their head and on their arms. Still wanted to keep that light skin tone, and then everything else I did a pretty heavy black wash, and I had trouble getting my wash the right consistency this time, but it still looks really good. I'm really pleased with how they turned out. So let's get you guys a couple of pictures. Hopefully it'll show up and you can see what it looks like after. Oh, and I've already put a couple of coats of the clear mat on it. So let's look at them.